I learned a lot from just hearing you guys speak, and kind of because I feel like I'm definitely like trying to break through that next step. So like just doing this has been really awesome, and I would love to see
Wait,
more.
you still want to make a movie after hearing all of that?
So, I mean, essentially, the reason I wanted to have these round tables is just to hear from everybody, you know, from obviously very different perspectives about, you know, the struggles that we all go through in the film industry. We all have our own types of struggles, but effectively they're all quite similar, really, in many ways. You know, it doesn't matter what level of production you're working in, it's the same stuff, you know. And so VIDIVERSE really came out of my own disillusionment with the mainstream film industry, generally speaking, and how exploitative it has been over the years throughout my career, you know. And I think I've said before, you know, when I was a much younger man, I didn't mind being exploited so much as I do now, you know. And now I see others being exploited as well, and that really gets to me, you know. So VIDIVERSE is an attempt to, you know, on a very grassroots kind of level, create this platform that will hopefully help us all grow and prosper, you know. And so I think, you know, these sorts of talks, and I want to do more of these, you know, I hope to do more of these, is really just for us all to kind of like, you know, talk about how we see that what we can change, what we can improve, how we can help each other. I want this to be like a resource for filmmakers, as I say, of all levels. And I mean, already with VIDIVERSE, we're getting, you know, an incredible array of different levels of experience. You know, I'm starting to get like mainstream Hollywood filmmakers who've made features and, you know, in the mainstream, bringing their short content to VIDIVERSE. I've noticed there's quite a few of them, much like me, who are frustrated with what they can't do in the commercial world and are turning to short films to experiment, to play, to be creative, you know, which is exactly the reason I turn to it, I think, you know. So anyway, I think, you know, briefly, I think, Jess, if you can maybe let us know a little bit about your past, your experience. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Sounds great. Thank you, Alex. Well, I'm a filmmaker living in Los Angeles. I'm originally from New York. I went to film school out there, and I think a lot of people like myself want to come out to LA and see what Hollywood's like. And I've made a few short films. I've also been a part of some comedy groups where we made a lot of short digital sketches, very into the YouTube world. And then from there, I've been able to produce and work on some TV specials and shows, and just always keep on grinding on the creative level. Yeah, and I made a short film that's on VIDIVERSE now. It's called Fitz, SAG Eligible. And it's a little short comedy, dark comedy, a day in a life of an inspiring actor, quote unquote, who is very resilient. And I just love him because he's someone that you would think should have given up by now and hasn't. And it kind of relates to myself out here. And it's about really trusting the journey and not really the destination, because I think that's what we all realize is not necessarily about getting that big project or becoming a huge success. It's redefining that and the people you meet along the way. And just for me, I also just love to be a part of great, funny content because I want to connect with others. That's what like working on projects is like. So, and I hope to do that with being on this platform and meeting more people, more filmmakers in LA, and or California or all over.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a great piece, actually. I love your film, as you know, and we're hoping we can help you make more of them, because it really is. I mean, being an adopted, Los Angelino for a period of time in my life, and realizing that literally everyone in LA. I mean, you walk into a bank and you talk to the teller in the days when you used to do that before you started talking to machines, and they'd be talking to you about a script that they just written. Everyone was either a filmmaker or an actor, a wannabe, and so I think your piece really does connect with that kind of passion that those, the vast majority of people in Los Angeles have. But Nick, can you tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Yeah, so I'm Nick Peterson, and I've been a filmmaker for over 20 years now. I went to school to Cal Arts, where I was in the experimental animation program. And before Cal Arts, I knew nothing about filmmaking. I just knew I liked to draw and paint, and I wanted to make films. So I graduated Cal Arts. My first short went to Sundance, which was this massive experience, and you're like 20 years old or whatever, and everyone's telling you, don't worry, you have time. But I'm like, no, I have no time. I have no time. I need to make a movie now. And since at the time, nobody was doing stop motion, I got into visual effects, where I produced at a company called Image G motion control. And motion control is, it's a very complex beast, but it battle hardens you. I did that for about 5 or 6 years. And that's where I really learned how to make films. Like if Cal Arts is where I learned what works in my heart and just kind of like that feeling of that shot's going to go, working and producing at Image G, that's where I learned just how to get stuff done. So after about 5 years, I quit my job, raised a bunch of money, and made a feature film, which is hard and daunting. But I did it and got it out there, and did festivals and the whole route. And, learned it's hard to make money as an independent filmmaker. And the lessons I learned then, I'll definitely change on my second feature. A lot about, the structure of how to sell a movie and that world of sales agents and how it really works, and not the idea of how you think it's going to work. But also, like, I did my feature, I was like 26 or 27. And since then, I've directed, hundreds of commercials and music videos. So I think now my approach will be completely different. And I mean, it's like, 20 years later, I still feel like I'm still learning and trying to figure out the best way to make everything. Like always learning, always pushing, always making something new and different.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Jason has actually just joined us. This is our first roundtable. So we're learning as we go. So I'm going to click a button here, and hopefully another famous filmmaker will appear on screen. Where is
Hi.
he? Hi there.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. Well, we're all here now. We started off with a trio. Now we're a quartet.
I'm sorry.
And we've done a little bit of a blurb about what these roundtables are, which you'll have to watch to catch up on. Because I don't really want to go through it again. But Jason, if you can just give us a quick summary of yourself as a filmmaker and the kind of just a bit of background, just so everyone knows who we're talking to.
Yeah, my name is Jason Christopher Mayer. I directed Serotonin, that's on VIDIVERSE. And I've been doing this, I guess professionally now for a few years. But, I made my first feature when I was 23 years old. And then, just kind of been doing it ever since. So
great. And Nick and Jessica meet Jason. We're all on VIDIVERSE, myself included. And look, yeah, we were just basically, what we were saying about these round tables is it's an opportunity for us all to kind of like describe our various different approaches to the film industry, and perhaps approaches that we all find a little bit disheartening from time to time, and trying to find a way forward and a way to improve things. The big concept of of VIDIVERSE is that it's trying to be a model to support filmmakers and, help us make a sustainable industry out of what we do. I mean, we all make our money, our wages in different ways, depending on where we sit in the film industry. A lot of short filmmakers fulfill other, as directors and writers, fulfill other roles in the film industry to earn their bread and butter. But they really want to direct and they really want to write, they really want to make their films, but they haven't quite found that way into the the professional industry, so to speak. But anyway, I want to hear you guys talk more. So, I mean, the what I'd like to hear is about some of the challenges that you experience as filmmakers in any level of your careers that you want to talk about. Nick, if you want to talk about your music videos or your commercials, just whatever. I just want to hear you guys talk about what is it that you want to do and why you can't more clearly be in that space, and how we get to that space. So whoever wants to go, I'd love to hear some of that conversation.
Oh, I can leave. I mean, talking about challenges, that's easy for any filmmaker. But it's like,
I'm like, we're there right now.
Yeah, where do you
start? I made my short because I wanted to make a feature. We tried to crowdfund. We didn't meet our crowdfunding goals. So we're like, what can we do? Just like being creative, like, all right, let's just take one character, one day. Let's just do that. Let's just get all our resources. And we filmed I think a few $1,000s and went to a few festivals. And I live in LA and I don't know. I had a teacher once send me hey, do you know any agents? I'm like, I don't know. You're just knocking on so many doors. And I feel like, Jason, you kind of said, you just got to keep on emailing, I guess, or just, and even VIDIVERSE, that was another, shot in the dark. I didn't know. I was like, okay, let's submit something. You never know, but it's one of those things where you kind of want, I want to kind of run into the fire the way you two have.
The biggest challenge at all times is, how do you find somebody that needs you who has the money to hire you as a filmmaker? Meaning, unless you are independently wealthy, you have to find somebody who needs some sort of content. Whether it's I have a commercial that needs to be made. I have a TV show that we got 10 episodes. I've got a music video, and music videos are commercials, 100%. They're not. Don't fool anyone. A music video is a commercial for a band. And and sometimes as a filmmaker, if you're doing a car commercial, you have an agency, and your job is to take that agency idea, filter it through the filmmaker lens, and get them a product that they're happy with. And sometimes you're like Alex said, it's the sets are built, the actors know what they're doing. If it's a recurring gag, then you're there to shepherd it and maybe add a little extra something of your own. And sometimes you get lucky where, I'll do music videos where they just say, here's the concept, just run with it. And I can build the sets, design all the stuff, cast the actors, and really world build. And that's the best. When you can world build, it's incredible. But sometimes,
I've seen you actually love building your own sets. So I know that you actually you like getting in there with your hands, getting your hands dirty, and actually building the environment, which I think is fascinating.
I rarely hire a production designer for all my stuff, and that's mainly not because I think I'm so smart, but at a certain budget level, the money that I would spend on a production designer, I'd rather just take it, just do it myself and hire like an art director or even a PA just to put some props up here and there and use that money somewhere else. And then to me, everything is story and character and world building. If you find that one little piece of something, it has to lock in somewhere for that story and character, or else get it out of there, and I can do that more easily if I'm just, doing it on my own. But yeah, even with clients, I've been pretty lucky where a lot of clients kind of let me do what I want. Even the ones with really strict story points of, I have to hit this moment, that moment, that moment. As long as I hit those major beats, they kind of let me kind of build the world because they enjoy my work and they kind of trust me. But, you can't ever forget that you're still getting paid from somebody to do something. And that's fine. That's filmmaking. It's Michelangelo had the Pope. The Pope told him, paint the Sistine Chapel this way. He had obviously a lot of creative ideas, but in the end, somebody said, hey, we want 8 of this and 2 of these. Yeah.
What do you think about, have you heard about Francis Coppola spending $150 million of his own money to make his next film? How do you respond to that sort of
I
approach?
think it's amazing because in that same article he mentions, listen, my kids are taken care of, I'm taken care of, and he's got 100-something million and so many years to live. Why not? I think it's amazing. But then he's got 100% control. He can do whatever he wants, no clients. But I also think, and this is a lot of filmmakers don't like hearing this, sometimes the studio's right. Sometimes you do need a client to say, hold on, guys, don't go so far. Like, look at Terry Gilliam's work. He's so brilliant. But one of his best films is 12 Monkeys because he had such a strong producer to rein him in and say, hold on, man, this makes sense, that makes sense, that makes sense. And they let him build his amazing box, but they kind of kept him in a little bit. So I think I'm not anti.
There's nothing more. There's no better way to rein yourself in than to be spending your own money on your film. I guarantee you that's the best approach. And look, I feel like I've done it myself in my own very, very nothing like Francis's level, of course. Even if I had $150 million, I probably wouldn't put it into one movie. But I've done it. I've done it early on. I spent $300,000 of my own money on a short film, which went completely crazy. I went completely crazy on. It was like my sort of small short film version of Apocalypse Now, where I kind of lost my mind, and my producer kept coming up to me saying, that this is your money that you're spending now. It's like, yeah, let's just go overtime. That's fine. I just went nuts. It was only for a week. It was only a very short, and it wasn't in the jungle or anything like that. But to me, I feel that is the most, genuine, honest way to make films. That you do invest your own resources, whether that's time, money, etc. But then you receive whatever reward from that investment that you would, that you are owed, so you're taking full responsibility. I'm stupid enough to take responsibility on movies that, 20th Century Fox finances for $150 million. I'm that guy where I go, I'm having arguments with the studio executives about not being able to move forward with something which is going to cost the production money, So I'm being them, and they're being reckless with their wastage of money because that's the way they operate, And the reason I'm doing that is because at the end of the day, that film, which is I consider my film, even though other people are paying for it, it needs to make that money back, at the box office. Because if it doesn't make that money back, I don't so much care about whether Rupert Murdoch's not going to make his, profit margin that month. But what I care about is whether I'll be allowed to make another movie, because that's what happens is the responsibility falls on you as a filmmaker. If your movie doesn't make its money back, then they all point at you and say, you're the buggers to blame, which is just completely stupid. If the film does really well, they'll take full credit for it, So anyway, I just feel like what Francis is doing is a great example, I hope, of that. And I mean, he's done it before. He's done it with Apocalypse Now and One from the Heart. And, there are other very famous instances of Jacques Tati, who's another favorite filmmaker of mine, who basically bankrupted himself sadly with this incredible movie that he made, which was, I think, was one of the last films he made, called something I can't recall at the moment. But he basically rebuilt Paris in this kind of modern, on a backlot basically. But an amazing film, and he sunk most of his money into it.
But I think, oh, sorry. I think as a filmmaker, you have to be part accountant. You really do. Like, you have to know what everything costs so you can make creative decisions to stretch that dollar further. Like, if you know that you're only going to shoot close-ups and mediums, you got to tell wardrobe, don't buy shoes, because wardrobe, they're going to buy the whole outfit because they want to cover themselves so they don't get in trouble, right? They don't want to be that guy who's like, hey, where are the shoes at? Oh, we didn't get them. So you have to really be cautious of where the money is spent at all times.
Yeah,
because
absolutely, and that applies to every level of production. Terry Gilliam is a master of that. I know Terry, and he's talked to me at some length about how he made, like Brazil is one I think is my favorite Terry Gilliam film. And he got amazing production value because he literally was so specific about what he wanted, and he'd walk around, and if they were painting one side of a door, that he wasn't going to see, he told them to stop painting. It was a waste of paint, and it was that degree of micromanagement that allowed him to do that. And I think a lot of great filmmakers are like that. They're very detail oriented,
Speaking of Francis Ford Coppola and television, I've been watching The Offer, which is basically the mini series about making The Godfather, and I really like the show. But it is really interesting to see how everyone kind of comes together to make this. Obviously, coming from like the writer Mario Puzo and Francis Ford Coppola, like figuring out the script and all the things he wants. Like right now, it's really getting tight with money in this series. But even the producers step in and find creative ways to make things happen.
Good producers. The good ones can look at creatively and work with you as a filmmaker. The bad ones will tell you, well, we don't have money for that. You figure it out. Or, well, the original idea was this, you're doing that, instead of looking at what you currently have and saying, how do we collectively get over this hump? And that, the best producers I've had, it's a team. It's like, if you're on set, it's you, your EP, and your first AD and your DP. Like, you huddle together, and then you figure out, what's the current status, what are the story points we need, and how we get it. And that's how you move past that in a good way. And when no one does that, it's just chaos. And it costs more money too. You're just throwing money out the window.
I'm also extremely jealous because it seems like both of you guys, Nick and Jason, you've been able to also make features, and I haven't done that yet. I've just been able to make shorts I feel like you're always chasing that. I'm always chasing that dream, like making a feature, but the money thing comes up, and then also not having distribution. So I was kind of curious if you guys wanted to like share about your feature process and how
I got lucky with my feature. Like, I made it when I was 23, and like, there was like a small restaurant, like a small franchise restaurant in New Jersey. And we reached out to one of those like owners, and like they were willing to give us like $36,000 to make this little horror movie, which I absolutely hate. I mean, I was 23. I had no clue what I was doing. Me and my cousin, who was my producer on that, we just a few months earlier, were like, oh, let's make a movie. And we made a movie in 3 months.
Did you make any shorts before this? Or?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I started doing shorts and stuff ever since like middle school. But then, like, I'm 34 now. So that was, probably 10 years ago now. My math's terrible. But like, so that was 10 years ago. So like, this was at the point when like red cinema cameras were like just the red one came out. So like if you included that in your EPK or your press release, like people were like, oh, he got the red camera. Like it was like phenomenal. But our technology has grown so much now. So even before doing this feature, like I had the Panasonic DVX100B, I believe it was, and we bought a Letus lens like converter for this other project that we're doing that we made for $600. And my cousin was able to I don't know how, but was able to get like a Hampton Inn hotel to give us complete free access to film there on weekends only. So we made this movie within like 3 months, in 3 months worth of time, because we're only allowed to shoot on the weekends. And we did that, and then we screened it at a local theater. and we sold out like the theater within 45 minutes, and we're like, whoa, this is awesome. So then after that was kind of like hitting the ground running, and like I did music videos before then, but once again, like the technology wasn't there, so it was just like shooting music videos on a Panasonic 100B, and I was like 18, 17 years old doing this stuff. But then so then when I was 23, we were able to make my first horror movie, and that was on the Red One. And even then, like, it was just such a headache. But nowadays, and thankfully that got distribution through like E1 through Canada and stuff like that. But it was such a weird process because we were editing the movie and then we were talking to distributors, and they're like, they want to give us the time of day of like checking it out and stuff. Or, you know, some companies watched it and then just completely declined it. Then we got a sales rep, and the sales rep was Imagination Worldwide. And I was really excited about it because Pierre David was like the president of it at the time, and he produced early Cronenberg movies. So I was like, oh, like my head like exploded. I was like, oh, this is awesome. But then they like wanted to change the title of the movie and for foreign release. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And that's what, like, I have people that think that I made 4 different movies because of how many times the title was changed, which is pretty annoying. I was like, so, but thankfully, you know, they wound up selling it to 19 territories worldwide. And it's funny because our US distributor, we sent the same exact movie to them and they declined it. But once our sales rep sent it to them, they bought it. And it was just kind of like, okay. They just wanted to change the title of it for in the US. So I was like, okay, whatever. I mean, I'd rather have it, you know, on a shelf at Walmart or Target as opposed to the shelf in a hard drive in my own house, you know? So thankfully it like went out and stuff, but it was I never went to film school, and that was the biggest film school I could have ever gone to, because it came out when I was 25 years old, and just going through those contracts and not really having a lawyer to look over those contracts, like I learned so much. But now it's like I'm 34 years old, and I did get lost in the music world of things. So I kind of stopped making movies and trying to do that stuff for like 4 years. And then I now like I'm a YouTube editor for like my day job, but trying to find even $10,000, because the technology is there where it's just like, hey, I mean, I can make a movie for $10,000. And I have like a bunch of people that are like cast wise that will totally just do it. And they're like, you know, decent names and stuff like that. Like, let's go. I can't find $10,000. It's insane. like I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And now like having the short films, like I have 3 under my belt, and Serotonin, being one of them, but I'm now doing film festivals with this new one. And my whole like goal is to meet people, but also to hopefully find a producer that can just, you know, help out in that field, that department.
It's fascinating hearing all that stuff. I mean, look, I'm more inspired by stories like yours than any Hollywood success story. I mean, to me, that's what it's all about, you know, and for me, you know, from day one, really, I've been that guy. I'm a bit of an imposter when it comes to a mainstream Hollywood career. I tend to prefer experimental European, whatever, art house films, let's call them. And, you know, like when I made Dark City, Bob Shea said, well, you just made the most, New Line said, you just made the most expensive art house movie in history. And I said, great, fantastic. That's what I was trying to do, you know. So anyway, but, you know, look, there's a lot to talk about with what you've said, but, you know, I've always been inspired by that, you know, jump in and do it type of approach to filmmaking. I love that. What I hate most about the film industry is that you can come up with an idea, write a script and be incredibly excited, enthusiastic, and then the industry beats you down from that moment on. And eventually maybe someone will give you the money to make the film. But I know so many people, myself included, who we come up with scripts, we run around trying to cast them and finance them, and it's just no. You know, there's been one project I've been trying to make for the last 5 years called The New Country. which no one wants to finance, because it is another, crazy idea. And, I even had one executive at I think it was the BBC, who sent me this long letter saying, I love Dark City, and it's a film that made me want to make movies, but this has got so many elements that I don't understand. It's got this and this and this. And what he described, I went, wow, that sounds really cool. That's a great pitch for my movie. And in fact, what this guy didn't realize is he was holding my new Dark City in his hands. That's exactly what this story is, but it's just the next level. So stuff that maybe hasn't been explored since I made that film, So it's like the level of lack of imagination with these people is staggering, So, I've been inspired from day one with that thing of jump in and do it. I remember reading Roger Corman's memoirs and being hugely excited and encouraged by and inspired by him. Don't really love his films. There's a few that are all right, but not a huge fan of his creative output. But his attitude of how he made his films is fantastic. I remember he's describing this one film where they had this corridor. They built a corridor set, and they hadn't written the script yet. They just jumped in and started shooting. And he knew what the characters were, and they were kind of writing as they went. They'd write on weekends and shoot during the week. And he had this corridor, so he thought, I'll just get the actors to walk up and down the corridor, just keep the camera rolling, walk one way, then all walk back, then one of them run down the corridor, then one of them run back, because he knew he might use this stuff somewhere in the movie. And it sounds ridiculous, but I love that kind of thing. I just find that so inspiring that you can then craft that into a, somewhat kind of organized bit of narrative. I think that's just extraordinary. And it's pure cinema. It's not like, sit down, write words on a page and then film it. It's like, it's pure cinema is what it is. It's the poetry of the moving image, that Roger Corman is developing right there. So that's the stuff that I really get off on,
Yeah.
But just to say one thing about your being unable to raise $10,000, which I find really depressing. But I know what it's like because I live that every day of my life too. But again, just going back to what's brought us all here is I want VIDIVERSE to not just help us get that $10,000, but eventually what I'd love the platform to be is a way that people, I want to make it something beyond just a streamer of content. I want to make it a way to make films, and a way to sustain people's filmmakers' careers and build their own brands. We need a lot more support and a lot more income and a lot more subscribers before we're ready to do this. But I hope eventually we can create some way of having people, Jason, you can present your proof of concept, your script, you talking, and you speak very well from what we saw on that little piece you did for us. Present your idea, and then I'm hoping we can develop some sort of a legitimate financing platform where people can come and invest in your film. And as again, it regardless of where you are, whether where you stand on the broad spectrum of filmmaking, but I hope to even be able to have people like Francis Coppola come to raise interest, because I know so many people, names that I won't mention, but I know so many filmmakers like myself who've had, the mainstream career, but finding it increasingly difficult to get financing. And I think something like this would be a terrific way to hopefully, if we can make the numbers work, hopefully make it possible.
Yeah.
How do you make the numbers work of having a distributor that can sell a film at a number that's, slightly higher than the actual cost of making it? you know, and what is that number? It's like, what is there some sort of average, like this type of movie can average 200,000 in receipts, we'll just say. So if you make it for 120, you know, everyone's happy and everyone's safe. Like I've kind of heard that how true this is, that if you make any genre thing like under 300,000, then usually they can sell it, you know, with all the foreign distributors and everybody and all the territories to make that back. But maybe I'm wrong on that.
The numbers are somewhat arbitrary depending on which sales agent you talk to, and you know, it's all very arbitrary. The reality is that it's all rigged. You know, the whole system is rigged on various different levels. Everyone's got their, you know, their finger in the pie, and except for the creator, except for the originator of the IP. You know,
I feel like I have no thing in any pies right now, so I'm just excited to hear you guys. I feel like I'm super on the outside listening to you guys. I made things, but it's almost Jason, we're kind of like the same age. I went to film school and it was just always like, where do you put it when you're done? And distribution was always such a big thing. I feel more hopeful than ever because of streamers, because of VIDIVERSE. Like before you made a short, and if you didn't screen at a festival and you didn't have a link online, you wouldn't be able to see it again unless someone's like passing around a tape. So I'm trying to be hopeful with that. I think there was way more opportunity, but it's still kind of feeling like on the outside. And I know it could be a combination of even just getting the finances together. I think a lot of people are, myself included, like being more creative with, you know, a lower amount, but it's more like, are you connecting to the people that can lift you up and help you meet more contacts? I think that's where I'm at. And that's why VIDIVERSE has been great, because this is like one of the first times where it's like, oh, let's talk about the creative, because you don't really get a chance to do that, especially with shorts.
I mean, jumping back just a hair to like the whole where the money goes type of thing. It's like when I did sell my first feature, it's like they gave us, like, I mean, I'll just be straightforward and say it, like they gave us $50,000 to pretty much to license it or whatever for 15 years. And then just like, okay, awesome, cool. Did I ever see that money? Absolutely not. And that like beat our, you know, like that technically, okay, we got our budget back, you know?
Why didn't you see that money?
Was that domestic or was that foreign? Like that 50,000?
That 50,000 was domestic. That was our domestic distributor. But with our sales rep, that money we actually saw from around the country. To be honest with you, Canada, I love Canada. They actually still pay me. So, but like that 50,000, and I straight up even asked, I was just like, they only gave us 50,000 because they thought it was made for 100,000. And I was just like, well, no, it was only made for 36,000. And not the A&R guy, the sales guy at the distributor was just like disappointed that he gave us 50,000 thinking that it was made for, and he just only replied was like, well, you know where to spend your money. And I was just like, cool. And I can't like audit that company because I don't want to be that person. You know what I mean? I'm trying to continue doing this.
It's exactly what happens on every level of filmmaking, right? It's exactly the same thing. The law of halves and doubles, you know, it's how you get more money out of a studio. You always tell them it's going to be double. That sequence that they want, that you've storyboarded, that you would be great for this, tell them it's going to be double the price that it actually is, because they're only going to offer you half, you know?
Yeah.
And then the smart ones will come in and offer you a quarter because they already know that you're asking for double, you know?
Well, that's I straight up, because they kept asking what the budget was before purchasing it. And I was like, I'm not, like, I don't have to tell you what the budget is. Like, do you want the movie or not?
But what a horribly cynical approach to filmmakers is that, you know? I mean,
it's like the best film school I've ever went to.
$1,000. For God's sake, are you going to generate that much in profit? Yeah, you probably will, and more. So give it to them, you know, for God's sake.
Well,
it's insane, you know?
Like, I see the reports, you know, quarterly from Canada And I'm like, okay, this thing, like this movie has been out since 2013 now. It's like, this movie makes money in Canada, but I have yet to see a dime from my domestic distributor. It's like questions. I have questions.
Yeah. That is a seriously.
How did you get that distributor? Like, did you bring Jess and they saw, like, how did you get distribution?
So I went to a sales rep. We just started emailing so many people. We're just kind of like, oh, just email. And this was when like DVD burning was still a thing. So like you're emailing. I mean, I sound so old. You're just mailing out, these DVDs, and Bloody Disgusting did like a great write up on it and all this stuff. So like we pretty much like sent it to a bunch of horror websites because it was a horror movie. Sent it to a bunch of horror websites. They like reviewed it. Took those reviews and then just package it up and then send it out to a bunch of distributors, sales reps, whoever we could get, back when like IMDb Pro actually had a lot of like straight emails listed of the contacts and the actual like offices. So it was just kind of like, it was easy to just like send stuff out. And then, Imagination Worldwide, they got back to us and, they're like, we can do something with this, but we want to change the title. And I'm like, okay.
But the problem with sales reps is they take money off no matter what you spend, they're taking money off the top. So they get their percentage, all their extra fees, the flight to Cannes and the hotel and all the stuff. They kind of triple dip on every filmmaker because good luck getting.
Yeah.
But
Nick, can you tell us? Nick, can you tell us something a bit about your film, your feature, Intellectual Property, which is on VIDIVERSE, which is a great film.
Oh,
and you were telling me a little bit about that. So
it's similar to what Jason said, where I made the movie unaware of how it works, and we got a sales rep, and they started selling territories. But each territory, I remember it would all go through a company called Compact Collections, a collections agency, because nobody trusted anyone in this world. The level of distrust is so high, it had to go to a third-party source to distribute the money to myself and the sales rep and the distributors. But I remember the domestic distributor, they sent back $0. And I kept calling and emailing, and I finally got through to some accountant somewhere who was oblivious to, I'll call it the scam, and he sent me a report. And the report was like $30,000, which is not a lot of money, but it's money in. And I went to the company. It was is it Echo not Echo Lake, Echo Bridge. It's Echo Lake or Echo Bridge. The price tag business. Echo Bridge, yeah. And I was like, "Where's my money?" No response. I'm like, "I see it right here. Where's my money?" No response. And at that point, when they saw that I had the proof, that's when they completely turned off all communication, because they knew that. But they also knew, like, no lawyer's going to take it on. And I thought for a second about contacting every filmmaker who has been doing like a class action thing. But again, it's like, that's a lot of work for, in the end, when it's divvied up so little. And they just take the money. It's just straight up, they just take it. Like
they rob you. They seriously just straight up rob you. It's like, even like I got my first sales report in like 3 years from my domestic distributor, but same thing constantly, because they rebranded themselves and all that stuff. And I don't want to like say what the names are, but like they rebranded themselves. So like they would not, like we weren't in existence to them. And it's just like
the company.
It's terrible.
Just to make you guys feel a little bit better. So iRobot, my film iRobot, which is made in today's money, it's probably made close to $1 billion at the box office, right? Very close to that in today's dollars, right? Still is not profitable, apparently. Still has not received. I've received $0 of profit participation.
Nothing for that.
Zero from my, and I have
Alex,
2.5% of, because 20th Century Fox apparently cannot make any profit out of a film that's made that much money at the box office, right? So now, look, I in full disclosure, I did very well with residuals out of iRobot, because that's something that the DGA, as you all know, that worked really well when there was this thing called the home video market, when there were DVD and Blu-ray sales. Now the residuals have disappeared because the streamers are not paying those. So now I receive nothing for very small amounts of residual money, but I get the Fox or now Disney accounting of iRobot, which is constantly zero profit. The sad folks at Fox and Disney have not made any money out of my movie at all, apparently, over the years.
But what point, Alex, do you? Because I have an older director friend who's done big studio stuff, and he has 3 or 4 lawsuits with the studios, and and they just and he's basically at the back of a really long line of other filmmakers. And
I know,
and I've had and they're just waiting it out. Like they just make.
I have good friends who've done the same thing and who have won many millions of dollars. And it's a question of choice. It's like, do I really want to spend hundreds? I'm going to have to spend at least a few $100,000 minimum Easily. On lawyers, and then it's going to be in my life for years. And do I really want to invest that much time and my own money? And I'll get angry. I mean, through the course of it, I'll no doubt get really angry and start to behave like that guy who spent too much of his own money on that short film. And I'll start to throw more money at my lawyers, and my wife will start saying, "Why are you throwing all of our money at lawyers in Los Angeles?" So I'm being sensible. I really just don't want to go there. And sadly, they use again. The studios use that to their advantage because they know that a lot of us creative people have very little patience for that sort of stuff,
Well, I've got a theory that most creatives are easy to let things go because for us, we'll just make a new idea. It's like whatever. I got a sketchbook. I got a million ideas. But producers and production companies and these other guys and girls, they literally cannot create an idea that works. So for them, when there's a good one, they hold on to it because they understand the value of it because they cannot make it. But creatives, it's like, oh yeah, that movie I just spent 3 years of my life on that someone took away. You're like, you know what? I got another one. I'll make it up later on the next one. So we as filmmakers don't understand or appreciate the value of how hard it is to make something that's a strong story. Because if we did, we'd probably fight more like they would.
No, it's very true. It's very true, Nick. And like the ultimate expression of that, I used to make music videos as well. And the ultimate expression of that for me was watching how exploited the artists in the music industry were.
Yeah.
I mean, usually younger than filmmakers, making a lot of money at a very young age, a highly exploitable age, and the stuff that was going on there made my stomach turn even when I was young and doing those videos, So yeah, look, that's why I think I say to me the best possible solution to all this stuff at any level is to take personal responsibility for your brand and for your work and for your rewards, for your financial rewards. Because as long as there are as long as we have those, middlemen, we're going to be at the mercy, whatever level, as we've just proven on this call. I think whatever level of filmmaking, we're going to be exploited by these guys, and so we have to come up with a better system, a better way forward. So,
go on.
Sorry, Nick.
I was like, how can we just go direct to consumer or direct to distributor?
Well, that's why I built VIDIVERSE. I mean, and it's like look, I love the big screen, don't get me wrong, but it's a distribution mechanism. It's a very small distribution mechanism right now, but I hope it can be bigger, and I hope it can be get to a point where it can sustain maybe some of us, hopefully all of us, on the platform, and then if we get to that level, then God, we'll go and buy a few theaters around the world and still put our films on the big screen, if a big screen is even a thing when that happens.
Yeah. I mean, but then like if let's say you do four-wall it, let's say you four-wall the movies, and then how do you get that word out to let people know this is an interesting movie that's worth your time? And the money, I think people are fine spending $20. I think their time is harder to get them to leave the house and go somewhere for an experience.
I mean, look,
I went to go see Top Gun last night, and it was packed. People, I think right now, because of what we just all experienced, we are craving going out again. We're craving connection. We're craving like heartfelt stories, which is really like rare, because I think there was a time where it was getting a little too like depressing. I think now we just want genuine connection. So I think it's there, and I think people want to go out, and I think people also, because we have streamers, they're watching more content. Like it's I'm trying to be hopeful about it, but I see it. I definitely see it. I think a lot more people are excited and want more, and because we have like social media, we're able to like share
Guns
what we're into
with massive appeal and a massive marketing campaign. I'm not saying that they always work, because I heard it's a really legit good movie. But for like a working, blue collar filmmaker, right? Like how do we make that 1-to-1 of like someone saying, okay, here's 100,000 or 200,000 or whatever that number is, 50 grand, and you give that filmmaker that money, and then when you make it, they can then sell it, and you legit sell it for 20% markup, 30%, whatever the thing is. You make back your initial, everyone gets paid, and then there's some money to make another one. Can that ecosystem work like any other business, where there is an ROI situation where it funds itself, and you're like, okay, we're building a library, we're building something larger.
I believe it can, but you need to cut out a lot of the middle management area. You need to get rid of it all. Go away.
Taking a chunk out.
Yeah, because every one of those people want to make their little cut, and they're trying to keep as much of it as possible, so that if nothing filters down to the filmmakers, right?
Yeah.
And doesn't sustain them in order for them to make their next film, and to keep building like a bank account or an investment in a house or whatever. You're investing in your own career, your own brand, your own future, and you should be the one responsible, I mean, even down to the most fundamental level of how YouTube works, where the algorithm, it used to be on YouTube, the algorithm would help you build your channel, therefore your brand, right? So if you were a narrative short filmmaker on YouTube, you could put out a bunch of short films, and they would all feed off each other, and you'd build your audience, etc. Now, apparently, and I don't know enough about this stuff, but apparently the algorithm is now being constructed so it only focuses on the individual videos, right?
Yep.
Which means that it diminishes, again, it's diminishing your brand. It's making your brand less and less significant, So that's why I think, really the focus has got to be, I mean, I go back to like when the internet was first born, I was like, oh, great. Well, now that we'll have, StevenSpielberg.com, for example, and if I want to see a Steven Spielberg film, I go straight to StevenSpielberg.com. There it is, and I can watch it, We need to make more of those brand filmmakers that people recognize their work. If I want to listen to a new Radiohead album, I can go to Radiohead.com or whatever it's called, and I can get it directly from the artist, And that's what I hope we can do with filmmakers. So if someone specializes in horror or whatever, those genres that are now very much in vogue, you like one they've just done, you'll probably like the next one as well. So go back and, as long as you know where to find it and you know that it's available, then that's the key, I think, to making that.
It's really crazy you said that, because I was talking with a musician he put together a massive band, right? And what he was telling me is that he right now is more focused on the library of the band, of all their albums collectively. He didn't say he didn't care about the new singles and the new album that they're putting out next month, but he's more focused on on just the library in order to sell that library later. So when you're talking about a filmmaker system where it's like, here is my ecosystem. It's like Francis Coppola. He owns all of his movies. I heard that years ago, and I was like, that's so smart. Because all my shorts and all my feature, like I own it forever. And, you know, not that my kids will sell. I hope my kids aren't planning on living off the short films that I made. But that IP and that collection of, or like this, like plug, like I wrote a graphic novel because I pitched it around, people passed on it. But this is IP. This is an idea that I own. And I sold on Kickstarter, raised the money for it. Now I'm going to sell the book. But it's like owning this whole ecosystem. And I was thinking, it's like, why don't I own my own ecosystem? And it's funny that you just said that. I think filmmakers need to start thinking about that ecosystem of this is my collective everything, and building that library. So when I'm 70, that there's value to that I can then sell to a studio or somebody for like, I don't know, $100 but I hope it's more than that. But that makes sense to me. It really does make sense, because then you're investing in the larger thing of just one-offs. Like all the music videos I've done, I don't own that. All those stories I've written for those bands, I've got over, I think, 600 million views from all my music videos put together. 600 million. I've added it up, and I don't get a dime from that. But they, you know, they should, because they paid for it, and they paid me to direct it. So I'm not blaming them by any means, but there's an ownership that I think filmmakers need to take, and I think the earlier you can take that, the better it can, you know, build that library.
I think the other thing I like about this approach is that it inspires filmmakers to do things, to make stuff that is meaningful to them. That's their voice and their vision, and it's unique to them, rather than trying to plug in, as I see so many young filmmakers doing, trying to plug into the MCU or the Star Wars universe or the whatever universe, someone else's IP, someone else's world, you know. And, you know, look, this specificity is what will build your brand, your own individual brand, and it's what makes Maverick, Top Gun, whatever the hell it is that you guys are so excited about, that's not my movie at all.
You're not excited?
I didn't like the first one particularly either, but that's what's driving the success of that, is that because everyone's going, oh, well, it's like the first non-superhero thing to be successful, whatever. And it's like, no, it's IP, it's superhero IP like anything else. It just goes back to a 1980s movie where he's still a superhero. He's just got a jet, you know, he can't fly around. He doesn't have a jetpack like Iron Man. He's got a bloody jet aircraft, you know, state-of-the-art, you know, warmongering machine that he flies around in, you know.
I think that movie was just overall just the most entertaining movie I've seen in a very long time. Like it was just a movie. It was just like, hey, it was just a movie. There was nothing to like drill into my brain or anything, but just watching a movie. But yes, silliness.
I agree. I think very
She
similar.
thinks.
It became like the Jackie
Oh, and
Chan.
I'm probably going to go and watch it too, for God's sake, you know. I'm going to... Yeah.
Go watch it. You know,
Actually, I'll wait for the Bluray, I think. I'll wait for the Bluray. Okay, guys. Well, look, we should wrap up because we've been nabbering for a while now. But I want to thank you all.
Yeah.
This has been great, you know, and it's exactly what I was hoping that it would be. I think people will get a lot out of just hearing us, you know, tell our story, and you know, I hope we can do more and you know, continued success with your filmmaking and particularly your filmmaking that's on VIDIVERSE. You know, I urge everyone to see our filmmakers' work. I think it's a really amazing bunch of stuff that we're pulling together, and you know, hopefully we can keep building a sustainable model for filmmakers everywhere.
Yeah, that sounds great, dude.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you all soon. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Nice meeting
Bye.
you.
See you.